The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched far beyond what most eyes could see. Thousands of beings from across the known galaxy gathered here when matters of extreme importance demanded their attention. Today was one such day, and the air buzzed with nervous energy that could be felt by every creature present. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vrex Empire stood at the central speaking platform. His tall reptilian form cast long shadows under the bright lights as he prepared to deliver news that would shake the foundations of galactic understanding. The Vrex had always been known as excellent scouts, and their reports were trusted by all civilizations. Honored members of the Council, Zethkar began through his universal translator. I bring urgent news from the Outer Rim territories. For 3 standard galactic cycles, my people have been monitoring a yellow star system in what you call the Sol Sector. The 3rd planet of this system contains a species that poses a potential threat to galactic stability, murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. Threats from primitive worlds were uncommon and usually dealt with through simple quarantine protocols. Elder Yerix of the ancient Kethmori race leaned forward in her crystalline chair. Her people had existed longer than most civilizations could imagine, and their wisdom was respected throughout the galaxy. You speak of the humans, Ambassador Zethkar, Elder Yerix said with a voice like singing crystal. My people have observed this species for many of their millennia. They are indeed unique among the creatures we have encountered in our long existence. The Vrex ambassador nodded gravely. These humans have shown disturbing signs of rapid advancement. In merely 2 of their centuries, they have progressed from simple gunpowder weapons to nuclear fission technology. Their rate of technological growth is unprecedented in galactic records on the distant planet Earth. Admiral Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the Earth Defense Station Titan. He had no idea that his morning routine was being watched and analyzed by dozens of alien civilizations across the galaxy. The former Navy pilot sipped his coffee while reviewing patrol reports from the asteroid. Mining operations that had been expanding steadily for the past decade. Morrison was a practical man who had served his planet well during the resource wars of the previous decade. When humanity had finally united under a single government, the establishment of orbital defense platforms had been his idea. The station served dual purposes as both early warning systems and command centers for the growing fleet of mining vessels that kept Earth's economy running. Commander Lisa Hayes reporting from Mining Station Alpha, came the crackling voice through the communication system. We have detected unusual energy signatures in the outer asteroid belt. Recommend immediate investigation. Morrison set down his coffee cup and leaned forward. Strange energy readings were not uncommon in space, but something about Hayes' tone suggested this was different. Tell Commander Hayes to proceed with standard caution protocols, he replied to his communications officer, and get me Dr. Ryan Clark from the Xenobiology Department. I have a feeling this might be more than cosmic radiation. Back in the council chambers, Zethkar continued his report with growing concern in his voice. The human planet shows clear evidence of multiple global conflicts that should have resulted in species extinction. Nuclear weapons have been used in warfare. Their surface bears radiation scars that would have sterilized any other world we know. Yet not only do they survive, but they grow stronger and more numerous. The delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Species that survived their own nuclear age were rare, and those that thrived afterward were almost unknown. The implications were troubling for civilizations that had spent millennia maintaining careful balances of power. What makes them truly dangerous, Zethkar continued, is their approach to conflict. Most species develop advanced technology and then learn restraint. Humans appear to develop restraint and advanced technology simultaneously. They have created weapons capable of destroying their own planet, yet they also show remarkable cooperation when faced with external threats. Dr. Clark hurried through the corridors of the Earth Defense Station toward Morrison's command center. As the planet's leading expert on theoretical alien life, he had long suspected that humanity was not alone in the universe. The energy signatures that Hayes had detected matched theoretical patterns he had been studying for years. Admiral Clark said as he entered the command center, If these readings are what I think they are, we may be looking at our first contact with non-human intelligence. The energy patterns suggest advanced technology far beyond our current capabilities. Morrison studied the data streams flowing across his screens. Years of military experience had taught him to trust his instincts and right. Now, those instincts were telling him that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge yet. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Vrex War Council was meeting in secret session. General Crickstel paced before a holographic display showing the Sol system in detail. Unlike the cautious scientists who urged patience, the military leaders of the Vrex Empire saw opportunity where others saw danger. These humans have valuable resources and strategic location, Crickstel declared to his assembled officers. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. A show of force should be sufficient to bring them into the Empire as a client species. The Council fears shadows while we see profit. The War Council voted unanimously to dispatch a battle fleet to the Sol system. They believe that overwhelming superiority would convince the humans to surrender without significant resistance. It was a decision that would echo through galactic history and change the balance of power forever. Elder Yarix felt a chill of premonition as the council session ended. Her people had survived longer than any other known civilization by recognizing patterns that others missed. The energy she sensed around discussions of humanity reminded her of ancient warnings passed down through countless generations. The universe itself seemed to whisper that some sleeping giants should never be awakened. The Vrex battle fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system like a storm of metal and energy. 50 warships arranged themselves in perfect formation, as they had done countless times before during the conquest of 47 different worlds. General Crickstel stood on the bridge of his flagship, surveying the primitive system before him with the confidence that came from centuries of military superiority. Open communication channels to their most advanced settlements, Crickstel ordered his communications officer. Let these humans understand that their betters have arrived to offer them a place in the galactic community. The message reached Earth's defense networks within hours of transmission. President Mary Johnson stood in the White House Situation Room surrounded by military advisors and scientists as they decoded the alien ultimatum. The translation was surprisingly clear and devastatingly simple. Humanity had one choice to make: submit to Vrex authority and accept status as a client species or face complete annihilation. Madam President, General Paul Martinez spoke up from his position near the tactical displays. Our deep space monitoring stations have confirmed approximately 50 vessels of unknown configuration approaching our system. Their technology appears significantly advanced, but our analysis teams have been studying their transmissions. Dr. Clark, who had been promoted to head of the newly formed Department of Alien Relations, reviewed the incoming data with growing excitement rather than fear. Their ships are impressive, but they are broadcasting on standard radio frequencies that we mastered decades ago. Either they are deliberately limiting their technology to avoid frightening us, or they seriously underestimate our capabilities. President Johnson had led her nation through economic crisis and natural disasters, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. What are our options, General Martinez? She asked while studying the alien fleet positions on the main screen. We have been preparing for this possibility since the energy signatures were first detected. Martinez replied, Our orbital defense platforms are armed and ready. The space-based fleet may be small, but every vessel has been designed specifically for combat operations. We also have advantages they may not expect. Captain Amy Foster commanded the destroyer, intrepid from her position in the asteroid belt where human mining operations had been quietly militarized over the previous months. Her ship was humanity's first true space warship designed from the ground up for combat rather than exploration or transport. The crew had trained endlessly for scenarios that most people believed would never happen. All stations report ready, Captain, her weapons officer announced. We have target locks on 12 enemy vessels and are prepared to engage on your command. Foster had been born in space aboard one of the mining platforms and had spent her entire life among the asteroids. She knew every rock and metal deposit in the belt and had helped design the defensive strategies that were about to be tested against an alien enemy. "Hold position until Admiral Morrison gives the word," she replied. "We get one chance to show them what happens when someone threatens our home." The Vrex fleet moved deeper into the Sol system, expecting to encounter token resistance at best. General Krixtel had conquered worlds with far more advanced technology than these primitive humans appeared to possess. His tactical computers indicated that human weapons were based on chemical explosives and simple kinetic projectiles that would be useless against Vrex shields. "Begin the demonstration," Krixtel ordered. "Destroy one of their orbital installations to show them the futility of resistance." Something small but visible from their planet's surface, Admiral Morrison watched. The alien fleet approached from his command center on Titan Station. Years of military planning had prepared humanity for this exact scenario, though he had always hoped it would remain theoretical. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," he broadcast on all channels, weapons free. "Show them what happens when someone threatens Earth." The Battle of the Belt began when human forces opened fire from concealed positions throughout the asteroid field. The Vrex had expected primitive kinetic weapons, but instead faced coordinated volleys of plasma, artillery reverse-engineered from captured alien technology that had been recovered from crashed vessels over the years. The first Vrex ship to die had its shields overwhelmed by weapons that should not have existed. Captain Foster led her squadron in a series of hit-and-run attacks that used the asteroid field as cover. The Intrepid darted between massive rocks while firing precision strikes at enemy vessels that were too large to maneuver effectively in the debris field. "Target their engine sections," she ordered her crew. "Make them dead in space, then move to the next target." Dr. Clark monitored the battle from Earth, while simultaneously analyzing every piece of alien technology that came within range of human sensors. "Their weapons are energy-based, but their targeting systems rely on predictable movement patterns," he reported to the command staff. "Our ships are too small and too unpredictable for their computers to track effectively," the Vrex found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow established military doctrine. Human ships appeared from unexpected directions, fired devastating volleys, and disappeared before return fire could be coordinated. Worse yet, the humans seemed to be learning and adapting their tactics in real time as the battle progressed. "How are they penetrating our shields?" demanded Krixtel. As another of his ships exploded in brilliant fire, "Their technology should be centuries behind ours." His tactical officer studied the sensor readings with growing confusion. "Sir, they appear to be using our own weapon frequencies against us. Somehow they have analyzed our shield harmonics and are modulating their attacks to create resonance failures." The battle raged for 4 hours across millions of kilometers of space. Human forces used every advantage available, including superior knowledge of local conditions and tactics that bordered on suicidal bravery. When Vrex ships tried to retreat, human vessels followed them into open space where the fighting became even more desperate. Captain Don Cooper arrived with reinforcements aboard the heavy cruiser New York, just as the Vrex were attempting to regroup for a final assault on Earth itself. "All ships concentrate fire on their command vessel," he ordered. "Cut the head off the snake and the body dies." General Krixtel watched his fleet die around him as human forces pressed their attack with relentless determination. These primitive creatures fought like they had nothing to lose and everything to gain. His final transmission before the flagship exploded under concentrated human fire would be remembered throughout galactic history. "What have we awakened?" Krixtel whispered as his bridge collapsed around him, when the battle ended 37. Vrex ships had been destroyed, and the remaining 13 were fleeing toward the galactic core carrying news that would shake the foundations of alien understanding. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most unmistakable way possible. President Johnson addressed the world that evening with news that changed everything. "We are not alone in the universe, and we have just proven that we will not go quietly into the night. Today humanity took its first step toward claiming our place among the stars." News of the Vrex defeat spread through galactic communication networks faster than wildfire across dry grass. In council chambers, Throughout the galaxy, panic replaced the usual diplomatic calm as species that had considered themselves safe behind. Layers of military protection suddenly realized that the established order had been shattered by a previously unknown force. "This cannot be accurate," declared Senator Vorth of the Hegemony Coalition. While reviewing the battle recordings for the fifth time, no primitive species achieved such dramatic combat effectiveness within a single engagement. The data must be corrupted or falsified, but the evidence streaming in from multiple sources painted an undeniable picture. The surviving Vrex vessels carried detailed recordings that defied conventional understanding of warfare and military tactics. The humans had not simply fought back against superior technology. They had adapted during the battle itself, turning Vrex weapons against their creators and employing strategies that seemed to violate basic principles of military science. Elder Yarrick studied the recordings with the weight of millennia behind her crystalline eyes. "The patterns are clear to those who know how to see them," she told the emergency council session. "These humans do not fight like other species. They fight like cornered predators who have decided that survival requires the complete destruction of any threat." Captain Don Cooper now commanded the heavy cruiser New York as it led human expansion into the contested Kepler sector. His mission orders were straightforward, but their implications were staggering. Establish human territorial claims and systems abandoned by fleeing Vrex forces, and secure any resources or intelligence that might prove useful for future operations. Colonel Sarah Miller reporting from Marine Battalion Alpha aboard the transport. Oregon came the transmission that would change galactic politics forever. "We have secured the primary Vrex mining facility on Kepler 442b. The alien workers are requesting political asylum rather than returning to their home systems." Cooper stared at the communication display in disbelief before forwarding the message to Earth Command. For the first time in recorded galactic history, members of one species were voluntarily abandoning their own civilization to join another. The implications went far beyond simple military conquest into realms that political scientists had never. CONSIDERED Dr. Kate Lewis found herself managing the galaxy's first interspecies refugee crisis from her new position as head of the Department of Alien Relations. The Vrex workers who had surrendered brought with them technical specifications, detailed star charts, and intelligence about 17 different alien civilizations that suddenly found their secrets exposed to human analysis. "They are not simply seeking protection from retaliation," Lewis reported to the Colonial Council during an emergency session. "These beings are providing us with detailed information about military capabilities, political structures, and economic systems across known space. They appear to believe that cooperation with humanity offers better prospects than loyalty to their own empire." The psychological impact of this development rippled through alien civilizations like seismic shocks. Military commanders who had spent centuries perfecting strategies for conventional warfare suddenly faced an enemy that was rewriting the fundamental rules of conflict. The humans were not just winning battles. They were converting former enemies into allies and gaining access to intelligence networks that had taken millennia to establish. Admiral Susan Carter received her promotion to fleet command aboard the new battleship Liberty while human forces consolidated their control over former Vrex territories. Her orders reflected humanity's growing confidence and expanding ambitions. Secure the hyperspace routes leading toward the galactic core and prepare for contact with more advanced civilizations that would inevitably respond to human expansion. Intelligence reports indicate that the Hegemony Coalition is mobilizing significant military assets, Carter's aide informed her during the daily briefing. "Their fleet strength appears to be approximately 10 times larger than anything we have encountered so far." Carter studied the tactical projections with the calm professionalism that had earned her rapid promotion through human military ranks. "Size is not everything in space combat," she replied. "The Vrex thought their superior numbers would guarantee victory. We showed them that superior tactics and superior motivation can overcome superior firepower." The Galactic Council faced an unprecedented crisis as member civilizations demanded action against the human threat while simultaneously preparing their own defensive measures. The emergency session lasted for weeks as delegates struggled to formulate responses to a situation that had no precedent in galactic history. "We created this problem by allowing the Vrex to act unilaterally," Elder Yerix warned the assembled representatives. "The humans now view the Council not as a neutral authority but as a potential threat that requires neutralization. Every military action we take confirms their suspicions and strengthens their resolve." Senator Vorth disagreed with characteristic bluntness. "These mammals must be contained before they destabilize the entire galactic order. The Hegemony Coalition has maintained peace and stability for 2,000 years. We will not allow primitive savages to destroy what our ancestors built," Captain Tony Walsh commanded the stealth ship Ghost of Terra on deep reconnaissance missions that penetrated far into alien territory. His vessel represented the cutting edge of human technology enhanced by modifications based on captured Vrex equipment and intelligence provided by defectors. The missions were dangerous, but the intelligence they gathered was invaluable for planning future operations. "Ghost of Terra to Fleet Command," Walsh transmitted from his position near the Hegemony. "Core worlds, I am observing massive fleet movements toward human space. Estimate arrival at our outer colonies within 6 standard weeks. Recommend immediate defensive preparations." The intercepted Hegemony communications that Walsh managed to decode revealed the scope of the threat facing humanity. The Coalition was mobilizing the largest military force in galactic history with the explicit goal of eliminating human presence beyond the Sol system. The coming conflict would dwarf the Vrex engagement and determine whether humanity would claim its place among the stars or be driven back to Earth. Dr. Lewis worked frantically to establish diplomatic contact with moderate factions within the Hegemony Coalition, but found that fear of human expansion had overridden rational political calculation. "They are not interested in negotiation," she reported to President Johnson. "The Coalition leadership believes that humanity represents an existential threat to galactic civilization. They intend to resolve this threat through overwhelming military force." Commander Jenny Adams led submarine operations adapted for space warfare using techniques developed in Earth's oceans to hunt enemy vessels through the gas clouds and asteroid fields that dotted the frontier regions. Her crews had become experts at stealth attacks that struck without warning and disappeared before enemy forces could respond effectively. "The Hegemony ships are larger and more heavily armed than anything the Vrex deployed," Adams reported after a successful reconnaissance mission, "but they still rely on formation tactics and predictable movement patterns. We can use their size against them if we choose our battlegrounds carefully." The stage was set for a conflict that would determine the future of galactic civilization. Humanity had proven that they could defeat individual alien fleets, but the Hegemony Coalition represented the combined military might of dozens of species with technology refined over millennia of warfare. President Johnson addressed the human colonies in a broadcast that reached every settlement beyond Earth. "We never sought this conflict, but we will not retreat from the challenge. The galaxy will learn that humanity stands together when threatened, and that those who stand with us will find no more loyal allies anywhere in the known universe." The Hegemony Coalition war machine represented 2,000 years of military refinement and technological advancement. Supreme Commander Thektos stood aboard the massive dreadnought Eternal Glory, surveying a fleet that stretched beyond the horizon of space itself. 500 capital ships accompanied by twice as many support vessels formed the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. "These humans will learn to respect proper military doctrine," Thektos declared to his assembled fleet commanders. "We have conquered rebellious species before, and we shall do so again." Their early victories against the Vrex were fortunate accidents that will not be repeated against disciplined Hegemony forces. The Supreme Commander had studied every available recording of human combat tactics and concluded that their success resulted from Vrex overconfidence rather than genuine military innovation. The Hegemony would not make such mistakes. Their approach would be methodical, overwhelming, and decisive. Admiral Susan Carter received the final intelligence reports aboard the battleship Liberty while human forces prepared defensive positions throughout the outer colonies. The approaching hegemony fleet outnumbered human forces by margins that would have been impossible to overcome using conventional military thinking. Fortunately, human military thinking had evolved far beyond conventional limits. Captain Ben Turner reporting from the escort carrier Phoenix, came the transmission that marked the beginning of humanity's most desperate battle. Hegemony advance forces have entered the Kepler system. They are proceeding in standard formation toward our defensive positions. Carter studied the tactical displays showing enemy movements that followed textbook military procedures with predictable precision. All ships, this is Admiral Carter, she broadcast to the human fleet. Execute Plan Chaos. Show them what happens when doctrine meets desperation. The Battle of New Sparta began when human forces abandoned every principle of space warfare that alien civilizations considered sacred. Instead of meeting the enemy in organized formations, human ships scattered across the entire star system using planets, moons, and asteroid fields as mobile bases for hit-and-run attacks that struck from unexpected directions. Captain Turner led his fighter squadrons in suicide runs against hegemony capital ships that were too massive to maneuver effectively. The human pilots had trained for scenarios where survival was less important than mission completion, and their tactics reflected this grim mathematics. They fight like they are already dead, Turner reported as his pilots rammed enemy vessels. Rather than accept capture, I have never witnessed anything like this level of commitment. Supreme Commander Thectos watched in horror as his carefully planned assault dissolved into chaos under human attacks that violated every principle of rational military engagement. How can they sustain such losses? He demanded of his tactical staff. Their casualty rates should have broken their morale hours ago, but human morale seemed to strengthen rather than weaken as the battle progressed. Each destroyed human vessel was immediately replaced by two more that attacked with even greater ferocity. The hegemony found itself fighting an enemy that treated death as an acceptable tactical option rather than something to be avoided. Dr. Lewis monitored the battle from the command center on Mars while simultaneously coordinating with alien defectors who provided real-time intelligence about hegemony fleet movements. The information allowed human forces to anticipate enemy actions and position their attacks for maximum effectiveness. Admiral Carter, this is Dr. Lewis, she transmitted during a brief lull in the fighting. Our Vrex allies report that hegemony rear elements are beginning to withdraw toward their core territories. The enemy command structure appears to be fracturing under pressure. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Rodriguez led the 1st Human Marine Regiment in the first ground assault on an alien homeworld when human forces captured the hegemony supply base on Thelmara. The planet had never been successfully invaded in its recorded history, but Rodriguez and her Marines accomplished the impossible through tactics that combined orbital bombardment with surgical ground strikes. The defenders are requesting terms. Rodriguez reported as her forces secured the planetary capital. They are offering complete surrender in exchange for protection from hegemony retaliation. Recommend we accept and use this world as a forward base for future operations. The psychological impact of losing Thelmara sent shockwaves through the hegemony coalition that went far beyond simple military defeat. For the first time in their history, coalition worlds were abandoning the central government to seek protection from the human enemy. The established order was collapsing as fear of human retaliation overcame loyalty to traditional authority. Captain Walsh conducted deep reconnaissance missions behind enemy lines that revealed the true extent of hegemony disintegration. Ghost of Terra to Fleet Command, he transmitted from his position near coalition core worlds. I am detecting massive civilian evacuations from major population centers. The enemy appears to be abandoning entire star systems rather than face human attack. The battle raged for 6 days across dozens of star systems as human forces pursued retreating hegemony fleets with relentless determination. What had begun as a defensive action evolved into a pursuit that carried human forces deep into previously unknown regions of the galaxy. Admiral Carter found herself accepting the surrender of civilizations that possessed technology and resources far beyond anything humanity had previously encountered. "This is Admiral Carter to all hegemony vessels," she broadcast on all frequencies. "Your surrender is accepted. Your crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Your governments will be given one opportunity to negotiate new arrangements." The terms offered by humanity shocked galactic observers with their practical generosity. Rather than demanding tribute or territorial concessions, negotiators proposed economic partnerships that would benefit all parties involved. Former enemies found themselves offered positions within an expanding human sphere of influence that promised prosperity rather than subjugation. "They are offering to maintain our existing trade networks under human protection," the hegemony trade minister explained to his stunned colleagues. "During surrender negotiations, under this arrangement we can actually expand into sectors we never dared approach before due to piracy and political instability." Dr. Lewis discovered that human victory had created unprecedented opportunities for galactic development. The old system maintained peace through fear and careful balance of power. She reported to the Colonial Council human protection offers something different. Species that join us voluntarily gain access to resources and technology that were previously restricted by coalition regulations. The Battle of New Sparta ended with the complete collapse of hegemony, military resistance, and the voluntary submission of over 40 coalition worlds to human authority. But victory came with responsibilities that humanity was only beginning to understand. Commander Adams adapted her submarine warfare techniques to patrol the vast trade routes that now fell under human protection. "These shipping lanes have been plagued by pirates for centuries," she reported. "Our presence has reduced attacks by 90% and trade volume has increased dramatically." Supreme Commander Thectos spent his final moments aboard the dying Eternal Glory contemplating the magnitude of his failure. The humans had not simply defeated the hegemony coalition. They had demonstrated that the entire galactic order was based on outdated assumptions about the nature of power and authority. The galaxy watched in fascination and terror as humanity began the process of reorganizing interstellar civilization according to principles that no previous species had imagined possible. The old cycles of conquest and resistance were being replaced by voluntary cooperation backed by overwhelming force, but in the depths of space ancient powers that had slumbered for millennia began to stir as news of human expansion reached civilizations that remembered when the galaxy was young. The Kethmori had ruled their domains since before most species had developed agriculture, and they viewed recent events with growing concern that would soon explode into action. The Kethmori had ruled their corner of the galaxy since before most species had discovered fire. Their crystalline ships moved through space like living entities, powered by technologies that other civilizations could not begin to comprehend. When Elder Yeriks convened the High Council in their ancient chambers beneath the surface of their homeworld, the discussion centered on a threat unlike any they had faced in their million-year history. These mammals have disrupted the natural order that has maintained galactic stability for eons, Yeriks declared to the assembled elders. Their rapid expansion threatens not only individual species but the fundamental balance that allows advanced civilizations to coexist peacefully. The Kethmori had survived longer than any known civilization by maintaining careful neutrality and avoiding direct confrontation with younger species. They preferred to influence galactic events through subtle manipulation and patient guidance that shaped the development of other civilizations over geological timescales. The human phenomenon represented something entirely outside their experience. Elder Zephin, whose memory reached back through countless millennia, studied the tactical recordings with growing alarm. These creatures adapt too quickly for traditional containment strategies to prove effective. Their technological advancement accelerates with each conflict rather than following predictable development patterns. The High Council reached a unanimous decision that had not been made in over 100,000 years. The Kethmori would take direct military action to eliminate what they perceived as an existential threat to galactic civilization. Their war fleet began awakening from deep storage in hidden facilities that had remained untouched since the dawn of recorded history. President Johnson received the Kethmori ultimatum in the same Situation Room where humanity had first learned of alien contact years earlier. The message was delivered with the elegant simplicity that came from absolute confidence in superior power. Humanity would withdraw to their home system and never again venture into space, or the Kethmori would sterilize every human world with weapons that could crack planets. "How much time do we have?" President Johnson asked. Admiral Morrison, who had become humanity's senior military commander after years of successful alien conflicts. "Their fleet will reach our outer colonies in 6 weeks, Madam President," Morrison replied while studying intelligence reports that painted a grim picture. "This is not like previous enemies. Our analysis suggests they possess weapons that can literally destroy planets and technology that appears to manipulate fundamental forces of nature." General Martinez reviewed tactical assessments that made sobering reading even for officers who had grown accustomed to facing impossible odds. "Madam President, the Kethmori have eliminated 17 different species from galactic records over the past million years. They do not negotiate and they do not accept partial victories." Dr. Lewis nodded grimly as she presented her analysis to the emergency cabinet session. "Every species that has opposed them simply vanished without trace. No survivors, no refugees, no evidence they ever existed except in ancient historical records that the Kethmori themselves maintain." But humanity had learned much during their brief time among the stars, and their response to the Kethmori threat demonstrated how dramatically human capabilities had evolved since first contact. Captain Tony Walsh commanded the stealth ship Ghost of Terra, equipped with technology reverse-engineered from dozens of alien civilizations and enhanced by human innovation. "Madam President, I am tracking the Kethmori fleet from deep space," Walsh reported through encrypted channels. "Their ships are magnificent beyond description, but they broadcast their locations on quantum frequencies they assume no younger species can detect or interpret." The human response to the Kethmori ultimatum shocked galactic observers who had expected immediate surrender or futile resistance. Instead of retreating to Earth, human forces began the largest military mobilization in their history while simultaneously launching covert operations deep into Kethmori territory. Commander Jenny Adams led her submarine fleet through the upper atmosphere of gas giants using techniques adapted from ocean warfare to hunt ancient vessels that had not faced serious opposition in millennia. "These ships are incredibly advanced," she reported after successful reconnaissance missions, "but they rely on stealth technology that assumes no enemy possesses comparable detection capabilities." The Kethmori war fleet approached human space with the serene confidence of gods descending to discipline unruly children. Elder Yarix personally commanded the expedition aboard her flagship that had been constructed when Earth's sun was young. Her weapons could manipulate matter at the quantum level, and her shields drew power from pocket dimensions that existed parallel to normal space. "Begin the demonstration," Yarix ordered as her fleet entered the outer solar system. "Destroy their Mars colony to show them the futility of resistance." Something dramatic but not immediately fatal to their species. The Third Battle of Sol began when Kethmori forces encountered defensive preparations that defied their understanding of human capabilities. The asteroid belt had been transformed into a massive weapons platform that channeled the output of fusion reactors through crystalline focusing arrays reverse-engineered from captured alien technology. "Impossible," Elder Zephan declared as human weapons penetrated shields that had withstood the assault of stellar phenomena. Their energy output exceeds anything a species of their age should be capable of generating. Captain Foster, now commanding the heavy carrier Enterprise, led strike forces that used gravity wells as weapons and turned gas giant atmospheres into massive electromagnetic launchers. The human fleet had grown from desperate survivors to sophisticated military force that incorporated technology and tactics from across the galaxy. "All squadrons, this is Captain Foster," she broadcast as her forces engaged Kethmori. "Vessels in combat that redefine the laws of physics target their power cores and use their own dimensional rifts against them. Show these ancient gods what happens when evolution meets engineering. Dr. Clark monitored the battle from his laboratory on Earth, while coordinating with scientific teams that analyze Kethmori technology in real time. Their weapons operate by manipulating fundamental constants of reality, he reported, but they have never faced enemies who understand quantum mechanics well enough to generate interference patterns. The battle raged across the entire solar system, as human forces demonstrated that youth and adaptability could overcome age and power when properly applied. Kethmori ships that had survived the birth and death of civilizations found themselves outmaneuvered by human vessels that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute limits. Elder Yarix watched her ancient fleet die around her as human forces pressed their attack with the same relentless determination that had characterized every previous conflict. "You fight like the old gods," she whispered through failing communication systems. "Perhaps you are meant to inherit what we leave behind." Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez led boarding actions against Kethmori vessels using powered armor that incorporated force field technology and quantum processors. Her Marines moved through alien corridors that had been designed for crystalline beings while adapting their tactics to combat enemies who existed partially outside normal spacetime. "The ship is secured," Rodriguez reported as her forces captured the Kethmori command vessel. Elder Yarix is requesting personal audience with human leadership. She claims to have information that will prevent galactic catastrophe. The surrender of the Kethmori marked the end of an era that had lasted for geological ages. Humanity had defeated the oldest and most powerful civilization in known space using weapons and tactics that incorporated the best innovations from dozens of conquered species. President Johnson met with Elder Yarix in a conference room aboard the captured Kethmori flagship while historians recorded the first peaceful contact between humans and the galaxy's former rulers. "Your species represents something unprecedented," Yarix admitted. "Perhaps it is time for new guardians to shape galactic destiny." Admiral Carter accepted the formal surrender of Kethmori forces while human scientists began analyzing technology that could reshape understanding of reality itself. "This is Admiral Carter to all human forces," she announced. "The ancient threat is ended. We are now the senior military power in known space." The implications of human victory resonated throughout the galaxy as species that had lived in fear of Kethmori power for millions of years suddenly found themselves free to develop without ancient oversight. The old order had ended, and something entirely new was beginning to emerge under human leadership. 5 years after first contact, Ambassador Dr. Lewis stood before the reformed Galactic Assembly in chambers that bore no resemblance to the ancient council halls where fear and submission had once ruled. The new building on the neutral world of Haven reflected humanity's approach to governance with functional architecture that emphasized openness, accessibility, and practical cooperation over intimidating displays of power. "The universe did try to warn you," Lewis said to the gathered representatives of over 200 species. "Every civilization that chose to test humanity learned the same fundamental lesson. We are not conquerors seeking to build empires through subjugation. We are survivors who will do whatever becomes necessary to ensure not only our own continued existence but the security of those who choose to stand with us." The galaxy had indeed changed beyond recognition since the first wreck ships had emerged from hyperspace with ultimatums of surrender. Trade flowed freely under human protection through shipping lanes that had been plagued by piracy for millennia. Former enemies worked alongside human engineers to rebuild worlds damaged by countless ages of warfare and neglect. The ancient cycles of conquest and submission had been replaced by something unprecedented in galactic history. Captain Cooper now commanded the massive carrier New Earth, as it patrolled sectors that had been active war zones for thousands of years. Before human intervention brought stability through overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. His mixed crew of humans and former enemies represented the new reality of galactic civilization where species chose cooperation over conflict. Ghost Squadron to New Earth came the familiar voice of Commander Adams, who now led fighter wings, composed of pilots from 17 different species united by shared training and common purpose. Sector 7 is completely secure. The former hegemony worlds are reporting record agricultural harvests and requesting additional human technical advisors. The transformation of conquered territories into prosperous partners had surprised even human leadership who had initially planned for decades of occupation and gradual integration. Instead, former enemies embraced human methods with enthusiasm that created economic growth exceeding anything seen in recorded galactic history. President Frank Miller addressed the human colonies from his office aboard the orbital city Armstrong. While reviewing reports that painted a picture of unprecedented galactic prosperity, "We never wanted to become the galaxy's guardians," he admitted during his weekly broadcast, "but circumstances forced this responsibility upon us, and we have discovered that we possess certain talents for the role." The human approach to governance emphasized practical results over ideological purity with policies designed to maximize prosperity and security for all species under their protection. Former Vrex territories that had suffered under imperial exploitation now hosted universities and research facilities where human and alien scientists worked together on projects that benefited everyone involved. Dr. Clark, now ancient by human standards but still intellectually sharp, continued his research into alien technologies from his laboratory complex on Luna. His teams had made breakthrough discoveries that revolutionized understanding of physics, engineering, and biology while maintaining careful ethical oversight to prevent dangerous applications. "There are new signals coming from the edge of the galactic spiral," Clark reported to the Colonial Defense Council during their monthly security briefing. "Something massive is moving in the void between galaxies. Initial analysis suggests technology that makes even the Kethmori look primitive by comparison." Admiral Carter, now gray-haired but still commanding Task Force Alpha, smiled grimly as she reviewed the preliminary data from deep space monitoring stations. "Then we had better start building bigger ships," she replied with characteristic directness, "and we should probably warn our allies that the next challenge might require everything we have learned working together." The human military had evolved far beyond its origins as a desperate defense force into something that resembled a galactic police service more than a traditional army. Human vessels patrolled trade routes, mediated disputes between species, and responded to natural disasters with efficiency that had earned genuine respect throughout known space. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez now commanded the Galactic Response Force that combined human Marines with volunteer units from dozens of allied species, trained in rapid deployment techniques that could address any crisis within days rather than months. "We have evacuation procedures ready for 300 worlds," she reported. "If something bigger than the Kethmori is heading our way, we can protect civilian populations while our fleets engage the threat." The relationship between humans and their former enemies had developed into genuine partnerships based on mutual benefit rather than fear or coercion. Vrex engineers worked alongside human designers to create new classes of warships that incorporated the best innovations from multiple species. Hegemony administrators helped establish governmental systems that balanced local autonomy with galactic coordination. Elder Yarriks had chosen to remain on Earth as an advisor to human leadership rather than return to the diminished Kethmori territories. "Your species represents something genuinely new in galactic evolution," she told President Miller during their regular consultations. "Previous dominant civilizations ruled through fear or manipulation. Humans rule through competence and the willingness to sacrifice for others." Captain Walsh continued his reconnaissance missions aboard the Ghost of Terra, but now his targets were threats from outside the galaxy rather than hostile alien civilizations within it. "The energy signatures are definitely artificial," he reported from his position near the galactic edge. "Whatever is coming has technology that operates on scales we are only beginning to understand." The automated monitoring stations that humans had established throughout the galaxy detected patterns of movement that suggested vast intelligences preparing for contact with galactic civilization. The implications were sobering even for species that had grown accustomed to rapid technological advancement under human leadership. Dr. Lewis found herself preparing for negotiations with entities that might view the entire galaxy as humans had once viewed individual star systems. We need to assume that anything capable of traveling between galaxies will see us as we once saw individual planets. She warned the assembly our entire civilization might appear primitive to them regardless of our recent achievements. The human colonies scattered throughout known space represented humanity's insurance policy against extinction while simultaneously serving as centers of learning and development that benefited every species in their vicinity. Each world had become a laboratory for new forms of cooperation between radically different forms of life. President Miller concluded his address to the galaxy with words that would be remembered for millennia. To come, we stand ready to defend what we have built together. The universe may contain threats that dwarf anything we have previously encountered, but it also contains allies who have chosen to stand with us. Together we are stronger than anything that travels between the stars in the depths of space beyond. The Galactic Rim Ancient Monitoring Systems detected the approaching visitors and began transmitting warnings that would reach human space within months. The galaxy's new guardians were about to face their greatest test yet, but they would not face it alone. Commander Adams checked the readiness status of the combined fleet that now included vessels from over 50 different species, united under human command. All squadrons report ready for deployment, she announced. Whatever comes next, we will meet it together. The universe had warned them never to provoke humans, and the galaxy had learned that lesson through painful experience. But in learning it, they had gained something far more valuable than submission to superior force. They had found protectors who would never stop fighting for those under their care regardless of the odds or the scale of the threat. Humanity was no longer sleeping, and neither were their allies. The galaxy waited with confidence rather than fear because they knew that whatever emerged from the darkness between stars would find Earth's children ready to defend their home.